Well, welcome everyone. This is our second live virtual meeting for the Snake River Bridge and 22390 project. And I'm glad you guys could be here and join us, and hopefully you had a chance to check out the virtual room. And we'll get a link to that in the chat here shortly. But other than that, I'm gonna let Bob take it away.
Thank you, Nick. My name is Bob Hammond. I'm the resident engineer for WY here in Jackson. I've been here for about 30 years. And so, I'm not native, but at least I'm somewhat of a local. And thank you for coming to our virtual public meeting here today. This is our second one. If you saw the first one, you're going to see the same thing this time around, the same slides, pretty much the same presentation. We've got Nick said we're going to have a link up for the website, so you can go check out things until through Monday, January 10th. Nick's got that up. So you can go check out the website and look at all the information that we've got available for this project. And this project here is our Snake River Bridge project, WY22 intersection. So here's an opportunity to learn about that, find out where we are in our schedule, how we got to where we are, and hopefully participate. If you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand. Nick will interrupt me, and we'll see what we can do to answer those questions. Also, anytime you want to just get in touch with me or anybody else, please do. I'm happy to answer any questions anytime. Let's go to the next slide. Thank you, Nick. So I think I kind of covered this a little bit, but if please mute your line when you're not speaking. That way we can keep the communication clear. And then also, if you are low on bandwidth, be sure to maybe turn off your camera when not speaking. It just helps out to maybe get additional bandwidth so you can see things going on and see the slides. There's nothing high bandwidth it's going to be happening, so we should be okay. Again, raise your hand if you have any questions. So just to give a brief overview of where we are, like most people are familiar with the Teton County and Jackson area, but Highway 22 goes from Jackson to Wilson. It crosses the Snake River, and there's also an intersection with WY2390, also known as the Village Road. And so that's in general where we are. We're looking at replacing the bridge out there with a 4-lane bridge with 8-foot shoulders, and I'll get into more detail on that in a little bit. This is just an overview. And also, we're going to be installing a Florida T intersection, which should really help with the traffic backups that are there on a daily basis all summer long. While doing this work, we're not working in a vacuum. We're working and collaborating closely with the county, the town, with Wyoming Game and Fish, with Pathways, Friends of Pathways, other NGOs that are involved in this, and landowners nearby. So we recognize that there's other community connections that we need to make with this project, including wildlife crossings, pathway improvements, and we also went through and did a transit assessment to make sure that we're going in the right direction. So here we are. We're holding this public meeting. We're doing this virtually because of, obvious reasons, COVID, especially now. It's rampant here in the Valley. I heard there's over 600 active cases. So being able to be at home in the comfort of your own place and watch and learn is great. This is the second of our 2 live events. And again, we have a public meeting room that is available. So how did we get here? Great question. Back in 2012, WYDOT initiated a planning and environmental linkage study looking at the entire corridor, all of Highway 22 from Jackson out to Wilson, and also all of 390 from the intersection with 22 all the way past the village. We wanted to look at what the overall character of this system is, of these sections, and kind of look at what options there could be there. And with that, we can then pick out individual projects to what could help out and what's most important and most critical. So that was done. That started in 2012, and in 2014 that was finalized. We worked with the town and county and everyone to try to get. We had public meetings. We took public input on this document, and that was put out in 2014. Out of that document came this project to start out with, and there's going to be others down the line. We added this project to our state improvement program in 2017. And shortly thereafter, we established our advisory group, a stakeholder group, which included the town and the county. Start Bus, Friends Pathway was involved, Pathway System, Game and Fish, landowners nearby, and other NGOs, the Yellowstone Coalition and others, to really take a look at, all right, how can this project, which I'm going to tell you all about here in a second, how can we do this project right? And so we had some public meetings, got some information back from lots of people who attended those public meetings. We appreciate everyone's attendance and comments. We listen to each and every one of them, and we do try to see how each one of those can fit into what we need to do. We also issued a transit study through this process. We wanted to make sure we weren't doing anything horribly wrong with that. And so we authorized and paid for a transit study. And through all the public comment, using our Planning Environmental Liquor Study, or PELS, as a starting point, we issued our NEPA document, which is a categorical exclusion, in June of 21. So just this past summer. And now we are nearing final plans, because as we were doing all this process, different things were being planned and developed. So now we've got some final plans that are really close to being finished. And here we are at a public meeting to let you know what we have planned. Again, this is our second public meeting, and we're looking to start construction likely next winter. So the process along the way was very collaborative. We engaged lots of stakeholders and the public. Taking a look at how, what we did throughout that process, we had 2 public meetings where we got 91 comments, which is fantastic. It's always good to get comments. Those were both in 2019 as we were developing some plans to initially get some information and then come back with, all right, here's our first draft, if you will, of where things going and where we're headed. We had 9 stakeholder meetings with all of our fantastic advisory committee members. We had 4 wildlife subgroup meetings. The stakeholder group created a subgroup specifically to look at wildlife. I think everyone probably fully understands that we have lots of moose and other animals, elk out there that are being hit, and we wanted to make sure we were doing something good to prevent that. And we also formed a transit subgroup for the stakeholders, and that was just to evaluate what transit could look like in the future out here in this corridor. Out of that came a lot of recommendations that we were able to incorporate or at least answer as to why we could not. So let's take a look at the purpose and need of a project. Looking at the PELS that was done in 2014 that looked at the entire corridor of 22 and 390. It was broken up in various sections and different sections of higher and lower needs of if it was meeting the traffic needs and the community needs. And really, WYDOT felt very strongly that this bridge and the intersection was a major and critical portion of the future of this valley. And the bridge itself was built back in, I think, 1960 or so, 1961, something like that. Very different design elements going on then, very different need at the time. So we recognize that the bridge and the intersection just weren't meeting what the community needed and what the transportation system needed. So to address that, we want to make sure we bring the intersection and the bridge up to current design standards, which are much better than they were back in the day. Not that they were bad engineers then, but it was a different way of doing things. And we'll be able to address congestion and improve safety. The Snake River Bridge is fracture critical. That's an engineering term. Doesn't mean it's fractured. It's not going to fall apart any day now. But what it means is that there are certain elements of that bridge which we monitor every year to make sure that they are fine and working just the way they're supposed to. But if one of those elements were to fail, there would be a likelihood of collapse of the bridge. So we keep a close eye on that. It's not going to fall down anytime soon. But the bridge is considered structurally deficient in today's standards for a variety of reasons, and one of which is the fracture critical nature of it. The bridge that's out there now, I think if you've driven across it, you recognize that it's narrow. You basically have 2 lanes and that's it. The bridge rail is inadequate for the vehicles of today. There's no room for any road cyclists. There's no room for anyone to be out there. There's no room in case someone breaks down. It's a very narrow bridge, and there's huge amounts of traffic that come up and down that road all the time. If you have a wide load, it's very difficult to cross the bridge without closing the other lane. Emergency vehicles need to get across. They take up a full lane for sure. And really all those things add up to increased safety concerns. Now, I think most people recognize, but WY22 is really the only route from the West Bank to Jackson. You can't really go up Moose Wilson Road. You can't really go down Fall Creek. There are no other real ways of getting across. So this is a major and critical route for West Bankers and for everyone, say, in Idaho to get to Jackson and vice versa. For both tourists, locals, and anybody who's an emergency responder. Taking a look at our project elements, this is, again, an overview of our entire project. You'll see in this image here, we've got the Snake River that goes up and down in that image. You can see just to the left of that is the WY2390, the village road. Out towards the left side of this would be Wilson, and out towards the right would be the way to Jackson. The yellow thin lines that you see there are the extents of our fencing that we're looking at doing. There are some yellow dots along the fence indicating where we're planning on putting jump outs in case animals do somehow get in through either the ends or through double cattle guards or a gate left open. This way we can get them out without someone having to chase them out. They'll just be able to use these jump outs. There's also 4 wildlife crossings. They're going to be included in this project. The largest one is just between the intersection and the Snake River Bridge. That one there will be a bridge in itself, a second bridge that we built. And then also on the east side of the Snake River, there's another wildlife crossing with an extended bridge that will allow us to maintain the corridor that goes north and south along the Snake River for animals that travel up and down that way. And then also just to the west of the intersection, just north of the intersection, are 2 more box crossings for animals to use. And then there's an existing crossing under 390 that's already there. And then WYDOT will be installing another pedestrian crossing kind of near Green Lane on the west end of the project. So what we have here is a still image of a video that will not play on our presentation, but it is on our virtual meeting room. What this is imagine yourself flying over Stilson and you're looking at the intersection. You can see the Snake River Bridge up in the upper left corner. And so you're kind of, again, flying over Stilson. This is what the Florida T will look like. If you go to our website, you can look at this excellent video that shows how this Florida T will work. Essentially, if you're coming in on a 4-lane bridge to a 2-lane intersection so you can have additional capacity in that intersection. If you're coming in from Jackson, you can go towards Wilson with 2 lanes, or there'll be a slip lane just like there is now that will merge more effectively and safely with the traffic on 390 going out to the village or other places. If you're coming from the village, you're going to come into this intersection. You have 2 lanes that are going to turn left towards town, which is our major route. And then you can also have a right turn lane that will go out towards Wilson. And then for people who are coming in from Wilson, here comes the Florida T part. They have a slip lane or a bypass lane so that they do not have to go through the signal as they're going from Wilson towards town. That will continuously flow. And as traffic comes off of 390, there's be an opportunity to merge with the 2 lanes that come off of that to get in and go across the bridge. And, one thing we definitely wanted to make sure of is we work closely with our partners. We've collaborated with the town and the county for sure, and as well as Friends of Pathways and others. We took a look at what's coming up and made sure we were able to integrate and communicate about what we're going to be doing. The county has a series of projects coming up. It includes a new pathway linking Wilson. Actually goes even further. Eventually we'll go over the pass and comes into the Stilson Transit Center. We wanted to make sure we could do things with that project and make sure it was coordinated. We're working with the county in their effort to build that pathway. WYDOT with the county has already designed an underpass. We will be taking that design and incorporating that into our project near Green Lane so that people who are on the south side of WY22 will be able to get on a pathway, go towards Wilson. There'll be some other efforts there with the county, but for this project, there's a crossing there near Green Lane, which WYDOT will fund and construct. And then the county will be in charge of maintaining. During the construction, and I'll show you in a second on the next slide, there's a couple of minor pathway connections at a couple of intersections that we want to make sure work safely. And they're really minor. We'll get those done. It accommodates the cattle guards and the wildlife fencing. We'll show you a slide here in a second talking about some gates that we're going to be installing as we work with the county to determine how to do this. It'll allow the wildlife barrier of the fencing to be effective, but the county will be taking over and trying to figure out how to get the pathway through that fence so that it's good for wildlife to keep them out and good for pathway users to be able and their pets and children. Let's see. The pathway work, including the underpass near Green Lane and the 2 minor pathway realignments, we are planning on doing those at the beginning of the project. That was a request from Friends of Pathways and from the county to be able to do that, and we were able to accommodate that. So we'll be doing that up front on our project. Access to Emily Stevens will be maintained during construction, and on the west end of the Snake River, there is existing parking that people access to go south on the levee. That parking will be going away because there's going to be a new bridge in that same location going right through that parking lot. So that won't exist. But to mitigate that, there will be right now there's not a good way of walking underneath the west side, but we will be installing a good gravel path that goes underneath the west end of the bridge. So you'll have access to the south end of south down to the levee as well as to the boat ramp. So here's a better image of what I was just talking about. Again, here's the Snake River. You can see that. You can see the intersection at WY22. And the photo in the upper right corner is kind of an example of what we're talking about. We'll do where the pathway goes through the wildlife fence. We'll be widening the pathway out. The county is looking into the possibility of putting in things like electrocrete or other things so that gates could be left open and people could pass through. But they're still working on identifying what the best method of that would be. Either way, to the side of that will be an ADA accessible gate so that someone could pass through and the gate will automatically close behind. There's two locations where this will be placed. One is on the west side or on the left side of this image. You see a red dot right there, kind of near Green Lane again. And the other one will be over on the right side of the image there. And there's another red dot for Emily Stevens. These are two locations where we have the pathway going through the wildlife fence. In this image, you also see there's 3 pedestrian crossings that will go underneath the highways. The blue one on Wyoming 390 already exists on the pathway to go from Stillson out to the boat ramp. The red one next to the Snake River is where we're elongating the bridge and putting in a crossing so people can get to the levee system to the south and the boat ramp to the north. And then the purple one is there for the future crossing there at Green Lane that WYDOT will be installing. We've got 2 green hashed boxes. These are the small locations, one at Stillson, Beckley Parkway, and the other one at Emily Stevens, where the pathway is going to get realigned right at the intersection. It's not a major realignment, it's just shifting the pathway so it fits in better with the fencing and the cattle guards. We'll be doing the purple box and we'll be doing the green boxes up front on our project. So it'll be front loaded with pathway, so that will be open when we have other construction likely to congest things. So here's another image of what we were talking about. We took some photos and did some an underpass simulation. So here's, if you're standing at the south on the levee on the west side of the bridge, looking at what we're talking about, you can see a gravel pathway behind the levee. We have to maintain the levee system through here, but we made the bridge longer so that we can have the pathway that goes underneath. This gravel path will go underneath the bridge. It will be ADA compliant on either end. Another major thing that we wanted to make sure we were doing in our project planning is wildlife improvements. You know, WYDOT fully recognizes that wildlife vehicle collisions are no good for people, animals, or vehicles. And we need to do what we can to reduce those. And so WYDOT is working to make sure that north-south corridor on either side of the Snake River is open and protected. And working with the county, there were 2 more locations that the county felt was very important. And so on either the north end of the intersection and to the west side of the intersection, there will be 2 more underpasses for animals. The exclusion wildlife fencing is our best tool that we have in our toolbox. It does a great job of greatly reducing the wildlife vehicle collisions. Again, we had a stakeholder group that had a subgroup that was looking strictly at the wildlife crossings and where to put them and what best locations there are. We made sure we looked at our planning environmental linkage study, and the Teton County Wildlife Crossing Master Plan was also reviewed and incorporated. The extent of the fence, you noticed that in an earlier slide. I don't remember if it's coming up on the next slide or not, but it goes from approximately Wenzel Lane all the way to Pratt Lane. The reason why it goes so much further than our highway project is the highway project really is at the intersection and the bridge. Emily's Pond is one extent, and the other extent doesn't even go past the entrance to Stillson on Highway 22 for road work. But in order to make sure that the fencing is effective, the crossings are effective, is you have to have fencing that goes out beyond your project limits to make sure you funnel the animals to the right location. fully recognizing that the ends of the fence are a de facto wildlife crossing. We'll have some signage up at those locations warning of that as well. So this kind of shows a little bit closer view of where these are, and you can see the 4 wildlife crossings. Starting on the right side, you see a yellow bar that is there on the east side of the bridge. You can see we've got a wildlife crossing. Again, we've lengthened the bridge for animals here so that animals can come through from the Emily Stevens area and go south or go north. Between the intersection and the Snake River Bridge, we'll have a wildlife crossing bridge similar to what you have probably seen south of town. And we'll have another great view of that here in a second. And then the 2 bars that cross the north side of the intersection and the west side are the boxes for animals to cross through there. And all these dots you see, the yellow dots, are jump outs. Just in case the animals get in, we've got jump outs so they can get out. So here's a couple of great simulations. We went out and took some photos, put together these simulations. The one on the upper right corner shows the one where we've lengthened the bridge. What we have there is the levee again, and we're working behind the levee with a lengthened bridge for animals to go under to cross from the Crane Creek Ranch area to Emily Stevens. In the upper sort of center leftish area is a visual of what our wildlife bridge looks like, so that animals have a very open view of what they can do to go under the bridge and get to the other side safely. Wildlife fencing will tie into either side of all these things to prevent the animals from going in other locations. And over time, within a few short years, the animals learn where to go safely. And that's really the best that we can do. The other major portion I think everyone understands in this valley is transit. There's a strong desire to grow transit in the valley. Transit is not a WYDOT thing. It is a town and county thing. It's the START bus is run by the town and county. They get lots of funding from the federal government through WYDOT, and WYDOT wants to be a good partner in this and making sure that we are not doing something that would be detrimental to the future plans for START bus. And so we hired a secondary consultant to do a transit study. This was a request from our stakeholder group, and we had a transit subgroup that worked and reviewed the information coming out of this Kimley Horn study that was done. And the advisory group felt so strongly that they actually made recommendations to the START board in the county and the town as to what portions that should be incorporated in this project. And the town and county, mainly the county, I believe, through their build grant, got money for things like the signal at the Beckley Parkway, just up 390, so you can get in and out of Stilson easier. We're still evaluating how that works, waiting for a traffic impact study to have 2 signals so close together. The other things we're talked about is how to improve time to make the transit faster, to get from town out to the village and back and forth. The possibility of relocating transit stops closer to the highway was discussed, and also traffic signal priority throughout town. We're waiting for the traffic impact study for that. What that is when a bus comes up to a signal, it will either hold the signal green or make it turn green faster so that the buses can get through faster. There's pros and cons to that we are still talking to the county about and trying to see how that can really be implemented. But really the study was there to make sure that our efforts for the intersection and the bridge and everything that we're doing there will not impede possible future efforts for the START bus system. I guess this is something that everyone kind of wants to know is how are we going to do this? It's a very busy highway and there's a lot of work to be done, and that's okay. The project's going to be let here in November, this coming November. And the schedule there is really going to be determined a little bit by what we tell them what they can do, as well as what innovations that the contractor can do to do things more efficiently and thus possibly get the contract. We don't want to dictate strictly to them how to do everything, but we want to give them the sideboards needed to effectively keep traffic moving through our project, but give the contractor some flexibility to be able to be efficient themselves. So likely in 23, we'll be installing, which is summer of 23, we'll be installing the pedestrian box and the pathway, two little intersection things. And in August of 23, the Snake River Bridge will get started. Just heads up with the restrictions in place for when we can do work. We can't do any work from March 15th to August 1st in the river to disturb spawning and also high water. It'll take 2 years to do the Snake River Bridge because we have to build half at a time, like we've done south of town, making sure we can keep traffic flowing and build a bridge. So it'll be built in stage one, just to the south of the existing bridge. And once we get that portion done, likely in 24, we'll switch traffic onto it and tear down the old bridge and build the other half of our new bridge up in that location. So the bridge is generally in the same location, just slightly to the downstream side. But in 24, you're also going to see Wildlife Bridge going in. You'll see a new signal there at 390, and you'll see everything else getting done. Likely the bridge will finish up sometime in the summer of 25. And we fully realize that this is a very highly traveled corridor. And throughout the entire project, we're going to be maintaining two lanes of traffic. All the construction work will be happening outside of those 2 lanes so that we can do our best to keep traffic moving. Does that mean that we're not going to get some people wanting to see what's going on every time they drive through and go slow? Well, that's probably going to happen, and I can't really help that. I wish I could. There are no detours anticipated, and we'll be able to maintain traffic, and we'll be able to maintain the pathway opening so people can definitely take advantage of the pathway. If you have an e-bike, great, go for it. We'll keep that open for you. And that's our plan. So with that, I appreciate everyone's time coming to this public meeting. Again, there's the link to our project webpage. You can also email us. My email address is bob.hammond@yo.gov. Feel free to email me anytime with anything. Again, bob.hammond@yo.gov. But that is our presentation tonight. And I'm open to any questions that might come in. Happy to take a look at things.
Again, if you guys have questions, you can raise your hand or type them in the chat. As of right now, Bob, I don't have any questions or hands raised. So
we'll hang out for a couple minutes. I know that I've enjoyed working with all of our partners in this whole process with the town and county and NGOs and everyone. Really want to say thank you to our stakeholders who have put in a lot of time and effort and really put some good thought into it. The Teton Village Association, Jackson Hole Mountain Resort was involved as a major destination at the other end of 390. The town and county with everyone's efforts with pathways and Start Bus and the NGOs and Game and Fish for their efforts with the wildlife.
Bob, you have a question on where you're staging at?
Great question. We are currently in negotiations with a landowner just to the west of Stilson. And we'll see how that works out. We're going to be taking material out of the Snake River south of the bridge. And we'll do just what we call just a rough crush, just to keep it from being a bunch of marbles coming out of the river with all the cobble rock. And that'll be used as our fill throughout our project. And we're hoping to stage just west because we don't want to stage too far away. We've got lots of equipment and offices and materials labs. And just a lot of material has come in. So we need a decent sized staging area. And we wanted to stay away from, and we coordinated with the county in their effort to do in the Teton, not Teton Village, but the Jackson Mountain Resort, their efforts there at Stilson. We didn't want to impede their efforts. Otherwise, that would have been a good staging area as well. Oh, it was Venona who was asking that one. Yeah, we're talking to Wayne. So he's definitely been involved, and hopefully we're able to talk to you about that. We do have a secondary location, but we would prefer to stay with the property out there just to the west of Stilson.
You can see that, right, Bob?
Yep, I pulled it up so I could pay attention. There was a question if we have a contractor yet. No, we do not. The contract gets let or put to bid for contractors in November of 22. So this coming November, the contracting process will, by the time it's awarded the week after and they get the contract signed, they can probably start up sometime, probably in January, if they wanted to. That would be the earliest they could start. So January 23 would be the very earliest we could do any work out there. Let's see. The next question there was in August. August 1st will be the date that we're allowed to do any work over the Snake River or in the Snake River. We have to be blocked out from March 15th to August 1st for spawning and for high water. But they can get back into the river there starting in August if the river has gone down to the point where they feel they can actually do the work in the river. To put the piers in the river is really what that work is. During, I had some in the previous presentation, we talked about boating and getting people through there. The work in the river is likely going to be done in the fall for doing the piers, and then probably it'll be early winter or maybe even during the winter when the girders are set. And that's when we'll have to make sure we coordinate with anybody who wants to be boating out at that time for any girder setting. The last project down south here, we did that in early April. We're hoping to, I know we can't do that at this location. We have to be out of there by mid-March. So likely we're not going to have any conflicts there.
All right.
Some good questions.
Yeah, we appreciate the questions. Keep asking if you have any questions.
Nick, I think this one's really for you.
We will, we were actually talking about where we're going to put this recorded meeting. I have the virtual room up. We're thinking about putting it right under this welcome sign where it says live event number 2, or we will have it on our website on, which is right here, the dot.state.yo.us Snake River. So, oops, sorry about that. So we'll get it out and available. And like you said, if you see it, if you don't see it, contact us. We'll get it to you. But we'll try to get it out on the website for everybody to see.
The next question is, what is the price tag for this project? And I'm trying to put that in my head right now. I'm not sure if Meadow can jump on here. Meadow's our designer. She's also listening in if she's still here. I don't remember off the top of my head the price tag. That was something I did not refresh my memory on for this project.
Yep, I'm still here, Bob.
Oh, Meadow, maybe you know what the engineer's estimate is approximately.
I will look at it right now.
I appreciate that. Of course, anytime we have an engineer's estimate, that's our best estimate based on what we know. Some contractors in some areas are more difficult to work in. Teton County is one of those areas where the prices are higher, and whatever the price actually comes in at, unless it's extraordinarily high, is what it's going to cost. But we have a ballpark, I think, as Meadows looking that up as to what that price tag is right now.
All right, Bob, it's coming in at $23 million. for the majority of the project, and then an additional one for the structures. So around 25 million.
About 25 million. I was going to ballpark 30, but we'll see. But I appreciate that, Meadow. Thank you for looking that up for me.
You're welcome.
Put me on the spot there. Just, this is slightly off topic, but I suspect others are going to want to know this. Nick is in the process of looking up in what we can do for starting our NEPA process for the rest of WY22. And that will probably start up in the fall. That's going to be a few years of looking at the impacts, doing public input, getting lots of stakeholders together, followed by years of design. So that process is forthcoming, where we'll be doing all the environmental analysis on WY22 from Jackson all the way out to Wilson, approximately. Again, slightly off topic for this bridge and intersection project, but I suspect people are wanting to know that as well. There will be plenty of opportunity to comment and give input and attend public meetings for those.
Yep, we'll have plenty of public meetings and stakeholder groups for that one as well.
Yep. Any other last minute questions? Again, feel free to email me or come down here to the office here, just 8 miles south of town in the WYDOT office, same place where the snow plows are and where you get your driver's license.
I'm just scrolling around the virtual room. It's essentially the same slides that we showed you, but yeah, we will get the recorded version out as well. All right, well, I'll give it to 6:45 for any more questions, and then I guess we'll call it an evening in another minute or so. So thank you guys for getting on. And again, if you have questions, go ahead and chat or raise your hand and we can talk about it. And if not, if they come to you later, like Bob said, we got a email address out here. I believe it's on this page right here, the email the project team, and you can get us an email there, email Bob, or like Bob said, stop by.